To those who work in acres and not in hours, we thank you. Welcome to another episode of The GameSmith. In today's episode, we're going to be making 3 different types of farm tiles made out of materials that were literally just laying around. The start of our farm tiles build is with a brown floor mat from the dollar store. Floor mats such as these come in a variety of colors, but I wanted brown so I wouldn't have to color it. I also wanted the type of mat that had these small earthen elevations on them, since they look like the ridge and furrow of a plowed field. We need a base for our field since the floor mat is too flimsy to keep its shape after we add plants to it. We're going to use Chipboard, which is compressed cardboard, and you can buy them through our Amazon affiliates on our webpage or in the description below. The channel does earn a little money if you purchase anything through our affiliate links, just in case you didn't know that. I also want to use this 8x8 inch or 20x20 centimeter canvas board as a template for our farm tiles. Next, we put our square template on the back of our floor mat and use a white pencil crayon to trace out the size we want. We could use a ruler for this, but I'm not overly concerned that our fields are perfectly square. I do, however, want all the fields to be roughly the same size. Now we'll just use some sharp scissors to cut the floor mat to the shape and size we want. I'm cutting out all the pieces I'm going to need since we're making 6 separate fields today. Now we're going to glue our floor mat to our chipboard base. We can place our mat right up against the corner edges of our chipboard, but I prefer to have about 1 centimeter on the corner edges. We can then use our trusty glue gun to cover about 1 inch or 3 centimeters of floor mat and stick it to our chipboard. We then roll up the floor mat, cover the next segment, and glue it down again. Gluing the pieces together this way is better than trying to cover the entire surface with hot glue at once. Once we're sure the hot glue is completely dried, we can use our metal ruler as a guide for our hobby knife in order to cut the farm tile. By cutting the chipboard this way, we know that it'll match the size and shape of our floor mat. Also, we check the corners to make sure that they're securely glued together, since that is most likely where the 2 pieces are going to separate first. Next, we're going to spray some water and PVA mixture on our farm tile. But rather than a 50-50 mixture, we want to water it down to a 70% water and 30% PVA glue. The mixture is runny enough that we can use it in a spray bottle to evenly distribute the glue mixture over the surface of our tile. Now we're going to add some green turf to our field. I'm a fan of these woodland scenic colors. I suggest that you use at least 2 distinct colors of turf. Of course, you're not limited to these products or these colors, and they're just a suggestion. Using our 70-30 mixture, we spray the glue onto our field tile so that we get a large amount of coverage. We then sprinkle the turf over the tile, making sure to get the colored powder on the exposed glue. If you miss any large areas, you may need to add some more glue and turf, but don't hesitate to leave some areas of the brown mat showing. After you shake off the excess powder, make sure to save it for other projects. And finally, we want to leave the glue to dry overnight. For the next farm tile, we're going to use this woodland scenic clump foliage. Despite what it looks like, this video is definitely not sponsored by Woodland Scenics. I just really like their products. Just like the turf, we're going to use 2 different shades of green to represent the foliage of our growing crops. We're going to use some hot glue on the tops of the ridges of our floor mat. We're then going to place our clump foliage on the ridge all the way down the side of the mat. We can use a solid line of foliage if we want, but I've seen many fields and gardens where there are small gaps in the rows where no seeds germinated. On the next ridge, we'll use the darker clump foliage to change the appearance of our field. Likewise, we go back to the lighter green foliage and we continue our build. Then we work our way across the field in the new color. Skipping ahead a few rows, we can see how the gaps between the rows give a definite cultivated field appearance. Likewise, we can see the gaps in the rows help our field look like it was not created with industrial farm equipment. We can skip ahead to our last row, and just by repeating this process for each row, our farm tile has taken shape. You can mix and match your colors on the rows, or use entirely different colors. You might even use other types of foliage instead of this clump type to create your own distinct farm tiles. Now that this field is completed, we can see how this technique can be used for any sized farm tile we want. We could use the same process on much smaller tiles to create gardens rather than large fields. The process of making these tiles doesn't warp the base, and it's table ready almost immediately. We have some different spices here: mustard seed, white peppercorn, and red peppercorns that we're going to use for our vegetable farm tile. For this farm tile, I'm going to use some tacky glue since it will give me the most working time. We can drag a thick layer of tacky glue down the top of the ridge of our floor mat, just like we did for our clump foliage tile. I've made a mixture of clump foliage so that the colors will mix and match as we add them to our tile. We start by adding the foliage to the tacky glue all down the length of the tile. We don't have to press it into the glue yet, that will happen as we add our spices to the rows. I'm going to start with the red peppercorns, and using a pair of tweezers, since the spices are so delicate, place them in the gaps between the clumps of foliage. We can create clusters, space them out, leave empty areas, and place them wherever we see exposed tacky glue. We'll repeat the process on the next row, but this time I'm going to deliberately leave gaps on the ridge, just like we did in the previous tile. We add the clump foliage, and then we use the different spice or seed to fill out the greenery. You can actually load these plant rows much quicker than I'm doing here. I just found it very relaxing listening to music while I was doing this, so I took my time. For the mustard seeds, I found it much easier to pour them into the glue. In hindsight, I think using a small paper funnel would have helped me distribute the yellow seeds more evenly down the row. Once the seeds were in the glue, I added the clump foliage afterwards. I was able to press the foliage into the tacky glue around the clusters of mustard seeds without hiding them in the process. Skipping ahead to our final row, we can see how alternating the rows without mixing and matching our spices and seeds creates a wonderful garden or vegetable field for our game table. I didn't use a lot of red peppercorns because I thought they would overpower the rest of the tile and make the other colors disappear into the background. We don't have to limit ourselves to just these colors. I recommend that you use whatever colors you can find. The more vivid, the better. After we place the last few peppercorns, we just need to wait for our farm tiles to completely dry. The finishing touch is to paint the outside edge of our chipboard. I'm going to use a burnt umber to disguise the chipboard and create an earthier blend with the color of the floor mat. We can also get the paint inside any tiny gaps that are around the outside edge of our tiles. Here we have a final view of our farm tiles. We could use this tile in the early spring to show seed has been recently planted. Then the middle tile could show growth through the summer as our plants have taken root and are really growing. To finish off the cycle, we could use these final tiles as our fields ready for harvest. We could mix and match how we use the farm tiles on the table to show different seasons or different plants growing at different rates and so on. I have one final note on our farm tiles, which is about storage. When it comes to the vegetable tiles, the features can be easily broken, even if we sprayed them with a sealer. As a result, we can't store them by stacking them on top of each other, or we risk flattening the foliage and crushing the spices. My solution is to use these large resealable freezer bags so we can store the tiles vertically. The bags will catch any debris that may fall off. I have both vegetable fields here, and by storing them vertically, they don't rest on each other, which reduces the wear and tear on the tiles. If you have any suggestions on storing tiles such as these, I'd very much like to hear from you in the comments section down below. These farm tiles are absolutely going to liven up my game table, particularly around harvest time. I can already imagine the encounters that will be occurring nearby. Foraging giant ants, hungry owlbears, thieving bandits, and the list goes on. Using these tiles with the wheat fields and haystacks from video 29 will help me create a full farming experience at the game table. Even though I made these farm tiles the same size, I'm definitely going to be making smaller garden tiles too, in order to use them beside farmhouses and in towns. If you'd like to support us here at The GameSmith, there are a number of ways you can do that. If you haven't already subscribed, now is a great time. Hit the thumbs up button and give us a like. Ask a question or leave a comment below. Join us on social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Check out our website at thegamesmith.org. Read our free monthly blog and listen to our podcast. Finally, you can join Patreon, which gives you access to content like our podcasts and exclusive videos. Your support in any form is much appreciated. Until next time, I'll see you at the table.